That is, looks like a coffee.
Yeah, it's smoother. Okay, we are live.
Okay. Oh, let me
The manager not testing.
state.
Somebody does it. Sorry.
Uh,
Just make me chat and grab my hair.
okay. So we can go ahead.
Just please.
Okay. All right. Right, everybody.
Oh, share it.
Share. Oh.
Oh, you're gonna be talking to nobody.
Okay. Hold on. So share it on Facebook,
Wherever platform you want to share.
but go on YouTube. We'll be able to see it right now, right?
If we provide them with the link on
Okay.
Facebook.
Okay.
What's the
So-
number?
It's called We Need to Talk.
Channel. Okay. So what? Oh, here you go. Okay. Let me get the link. Share. Okay. We are live. now. Oh shoot. Right. I can't even find my Facebook. Okay, here you go.
YouTube channel will be with the same name.
Yeah, those.
I know.
it's just
It's so
gonna be
hard to find it. Okay, here you go. I just shared now.
No, so live, so.
Say,
Let me see if I can just share it over there. If I can share it here, then.
Yeah, you should be able to. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Type in the whole link.
Type in the link.
oh, thank you. Okay, so I'm sharing it now. Okay. And then go to the page.
Try to do it.
Okay.
You know what?
Mm.
Just
Okay.
And if I said also.
Okay.
so you can start.
We can go. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the first ever We Need to Talk show. I am so sorry for all the delay. We were having a little bit of technical difficulties, but it's still okay. We are here and we are going to talk. I would like to first introduce myself. My name is Abna. I'm going to be your host throughout. And we are also going to be answering questions the last 5 minutes of the show. So you can be typing in your questions as you watch. And at the very end, we are going to be giving you answers to those questions. If you have any suggestions, if you have any comments, you can do that as well. All you have to do is post. And today, it is my pleasure to introduce you to my first ever guest, Mr. Kwame
Yes.
Riafe,
Bonsu.
aka KB. He is the vice president of COGA, which is the Council of Ghanaian Associations here in Dallas, Texas. And he is also the president of Ghana Men's Association. So I'm going to give him the platform to just introduce himself a little bit, tell us a little bit about what he do and all that. And then we're going to start our conversation. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for tuning in today.
Thank you for giving me the platform. I think you've done the introduction, but if you want me to lay a little bit emphasis on it, then I'll do so as well.
Okay.
Well, as you mentioned, Bonsu Riafe with you, but in this metroplex being the DFW, most people address me as KB, being Kwabena Bonsu. And as you mentioned, which I'm currently the president and the current vice Ameritrade.
Okay.
So that's my background. Anything else you want to know?
A little bit about how long you've been in the U.S. because I think it's going to tie into our conversation today. Your family life, just something brief.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sometimes, if I have to even calculate, I sometimes miss the years.
Okay.
But I believe it's somewhere around 16 years that I've been in the U.S.
Okay.
And I came here when I was younger, in my 20s. And I'm married with 3 boys.
Nice.
Is that enough?
Well, for now, that's enough. I think we're going to get to learn more about him as we have our conversations today. So I know a lot of us are wondering, what are we going to be discussing today? This is going to be very interesting because the topic that we're going to be addressing today is something that is so important in everything that we're going to be discussing about after today and all the days ahead. So we're going to be talking about culture today. As we know, or if some of you don't know, I am originally from Ghana. So I know the Ghana culture, and then I also came here when I was 11 years old. So I also know the US culture too. But today it's not about me, and it's not too much about what I know or what I want to know. Our guest is going to be the one to lead us, or he's going to give us insights about culture. So, Kwabena, you said you grew up in Ghana, right? And
Yes,
you
ma'am.
came here in your 20s. So which culture do you affiliate more with? The Ghana culture or the US culture?
I think to do me the honor, you asked me how long I've been here. Would you also tell us how long you've been here?
Yeah.
Just to play the first side, right?
I don't want to say that because I don't want people guessing my age. I want you guys to just think of how young I look here for some time.
Okay.
I came when I was 11, and I would say I am in my 20s, so you can do the math.
Okay, good. All right. Now let's get to your question.
Mhm.
Go ahead with your question.
So which culture do you relate to more? Do you relate more with your Ghana culture, or will you say because you're currently living in the US, you relate more towards the US culture?
Well, I don't know how to dissect it,
Okay.
but when you talk about culture, because I grew up in Ghana,
Mhm.
and if I have to talk about where I'm from and the family that I'm from, I would say that I was much embedded with the culture because I'm from a royal family.
Nice.
And one thing about Ghana is that, when you grow up there, if you are able to grow along or in the rightful culture and rightful environment, it will be very hard for you to divert out of it.
Okay.
So pretty much as I've been in the US,
Mhm.
I have learned how to embrace the culture here, the good side of the culture, not necessarily the American culture. And I would say that I have both. Much more depends on where I would be at that particular time to exhibit what I may have to.
Okay.
Exactly.
So basically, you get to pick and decide per the situation that you're in, right?
Yes.
You said you have 3 boys, right?
Yes,
And your boys were born and raised in the US, right?
correct.
Have they ever been back to Ghana?
Not yet,
Okay.
but they will.
Okay, that's good. That's very good. So, in looking at the fact that you grew up in Ghana and you're saying that the Ghana culture is embedded in you, will you then say that you are training your children per the Ghana culture or the US culture?
But so to speak, even if I talk about the Ghana culture,
Mhm.
there are some things that I would say that maybe growing up, we thought that it was the best until we get up here and we have to somehow look at the two and see the ones that one would have to somehow sieve out of and embrace the ones that you feel like you can carry on to the next generation.
Okay.
So having said that, I would say even with my boys and the name that I gave them,
Okay.
it was somehow a struggle between me and their mother because their mother is Ghanaian, but she was born here.
Okay.
And she could not understand why I was so typical. But I have to explain to her why I'm giving my children that name because, back home or in our culture, being a Ghanaian culture, the name is very, very prevalent. name has an enormous effect on one's life. And people that are more spiritual and religious know how weighty names are. So with that, she had wanted us to just give them an English name or any other name.
Okay.
And I told her that, no, where I'm from, we don't do it that way, because your name actually can determine your destiny.
Okay.
It's somehow tied to your destiny.
Okay. Well, hold on. I just want to cut it a little bit. So is this like a Ghanaian belief, or is that religious, or how?
It's our culture, because
Okay.
one thing is, even with your name, let me just use that as an example.
Okay.
People that are from Ghana, if you mention your first name, so to speak, as you said, your name is Abena, right away they know the day that you are born. It's an affiliation for them to know the day that you are born. And Africans believe that the day that you're born do have some spiritual connotations with your maker or with the deity, because you could have been born any other day, but why not? Why that particular day? So we do have that belief that it's a special day, and if you're able to well connect with that day, there are so many good things that can come your way.
Okay. I would ask this question. I know I have younger brothers that were also born in the US, and they also carry African names. And even me, growing up a bit in Ghana, turn their head to look at you. But coming to the US, it is so hard sometimes. I have to always abbreviate or find something common or pick out some of the letters in my name just so others can say it.
Mhm.
And because we're here now, I mean, people are not going to care, or they're not even going to know that Abna means that you are a female that was born on a Tuesday. So maybe back home in Ghana, it was something that was, I mean, well known, and it was common and it was easy. But don't you think that in naming your children sometimes, especially being in the US, you have to consider all the things, the challenges that kids go through? Because I know that some of them get laughed at, bullied just because of their name. My last name, I personally don't even like saying my last name because it is always such a struggle. Like, I literally have to spell it out. Whenever somebody, you don't even have to say it, because even them saying Abna is hard enough. So I would say, okay, just call me Abby, or don't say my last name, or A, or something else. So in naming your children, and especially being here, don't you think that you have to kind of think about the challenges that your kids will be facing with how you name them?
Well, thank you for elaborating on that. That is good, and that is true. But one thing is, this is our culture, let alone they want to somehow, exactly,
Okay.
the ones that they want to embrace.
Yeah.
But one thing in life is, I always tell people that if you don't know where you're coming from, it's very hard for you to determine where you're going. And just as you talk about names, let me just take some few minutes to explain why we are more particular about names.
Okay.
Even if I ask you or one of our guests that is sitting right here, if for some reason, tells that, hey, buddy, I just saw your name and I feel like I want to just give you a shout out, like give you help, and go to the dealership and tell them that Donald Trump said you should come and take this car from us. And he gives you his personal phone number, and you go to the dealership and you tell them, hey, Donald Trump has sent me here to get a car. They will be a bit curious and suspicious about the move. But the moment that you give them the number and you call White House and they're able to speak to Donald Trump and say, hey, I sent this guy there, they don't have to see the physical check, just the name will get. That's what our culture and can determine your destiny.
Okay.
So if naming your child, you let your child knows the importance of that name that you've given to that child, regardless of how people may butcher that name. They know their worth, or they know the meaning of their name, and it wouldn't put their heads in shame.
Well, but then that we come back to, do our parents really sit us down and explain to us how or why they named us a certain way? I think I figured out that my name was from my grandmother, my dad's side.
Right.
When I was probably in my teenage. And for a very long time, I was so embarrassed by my last name. I didn't, because it wasn't something common. I think in my whole life, I've probably heard it twice from two different people that share the same last name. But it went on for so long before my dad actually told me that he named me after his grandmother, who he loved so much. And that was the reason why. But I didn't know. So I didn't take any pride in that name whatsoever. So my question is, so then should parents actually take the time to sit with their kids, especially parents that are coming back from different countries in the US, to explain to them why they're selecting these kinds of names? And sometimes even the child can't even say their own names.
Well, there's no name that you can say if you practice
No,
it.
you can say
One
it.
thing is, and permit me to say this, even on the job, I would say that that's where even talking about America. If you are very affluent, if you have money, or you might be from Russia, regardless of how hard that name is, they will find a way to pronounce it. But if you are not in the limelight, then they try to make it seem as if your name is hard to pronounce. But if you take your time, you should be able to pronounce it. On the job, there was some guy that I had encounter with, and he's from India. His name is 26 letters, and I didn't know how to pronounce it.
The first name or the last
The
name?
last name. And this guy have to take my time and break it into about five pieces to be able to pronounce it. And he was so happy about it. So regardless, and I don't think even we that we are from Africa have 26 names.
Some do.
Okay? I mean, personally, with my name, it's not just in the last name, but I used to have 7 names. So if you put it all together and you break it down, it might be more than 26. But then you can pronounce it if you want to.
Okay, so let me ask you this though. So you name your child per your culture,
Yes.
and your child comes back home and tells, to be sincerely honest, kids these days just say anything, anyhow, not regarding how it's going to make the person feel. And I mean, you hear stories about, oh, this child is being bullied, and sometimes it's because of the names that they have. I can remember back in middle school, I mean, I had that challenge too. I didn't care much because I think at that point I didn't really understand like the English and the accent that these students had. So they would say something, all I know is they were trying to say something funny about my name, and I didn't care. But what would you say to a child today that is facing that challenge, that even an adult or a youth that works at a certain place or in a professional setting, and everybody is always referring to them as a letter or as an abbreviated name? What would you say to them?
Well, just as you mentioned, you have to embrace yourself for those in the world who embrace you.
Okay.
So just as you mentioned, if you don't know the meaning of your name, how worth that name means to you, and others will not also respect it.
Okay.
My child, I can only give my child an example. His name is Barima. And some of them were calling him Brima. He said, no, he will sit you down and tell you that, no, my name is not Brima, it's Barima. And he wouldn't even give you an inch for you to ask what the meaning is. He would right away tell you that the meaning is a strong man. Right away, they turn their head like, oh, okay. Because you can see that in him. He is that strong man that will let you know what the meaning of his name is, and will not allow you just to butcher him or just bully him.
Okay.
So just as you mentioned, the world might not be nice to you in terms of how they may want to deal with your name, but I would say that that reflection comes out of the slavery that we went through, that colonialism somehow made Africans feel like they are not valuable. And most people drifted, and some of them too, they were not, it's not like they drifted, but some of this English name was enforced on them due to the religion or the space that they found themselves in. And we know that, when we relate to the religious aspect, most churches that had their feet very well established in Ghana, for most of it was the Roman Catholic. And I do believe that most people had their names through the church, being John, Peter, and all that. And some people thought it was so easy to pronounce, and they easily embraced it without even getting to know what the implications and the meanings are.
Yeah.
But most African names do have meanings, as I mentioned, and not just the meaning, they have effect as well.
Okay.
So, just as you mentioned, kids might be bullied, but if you stand strong on your feet and let them know the meaning of your name and why you have it, others will respect it.
Okay. All right. So now I want us to talk about some of the challenges that you faced when you moved here to the US at first, because we are talking about culture. So the culture in Ghana is way, way different than the culture here. So give us a little picture of how things were to you in your first week or month when you moved to the US, especially in your 20s.
Let me reflect on that. I would say not a few challenges. There was a whole lot of challenges because America and Ghana back in the day, or even for now, you'd say that it's like a day in culture. In Africa, let me see how I might be able to, dissect this. What I realized was here, most people were in their rooms. And when you step outside, in Africa, when you meet someone on the street and you say hello and ask them, how are you doing? They will answer, oh, I'm doing well. And yourself? To my amusement, the first time they took me to the store and I met somebody and I say, hey, how are you doing? Then the best thing I heard from the person was, how you doing? I said, you doing? I expect you to tell me your condition before you also ask me how I'm doing. But America, how you doing? I got confused. I was like, I didn't know how to answer.
Okay.
So right, I was like, well, now I think I'm in a different culture and I have to see how they do things. And in Africa, right in the streets, you see people blowing horn, whether somebody's crossing the street or not. But here I realized that it was so quiet and I couldn't even hear anyone blowing a horn. Yeah. So I have to learn the culture. And I did ask my uncle why. He told me that here they don't blow horns, to the extent that even if you are behind someone, let's say on the highway, or let's say on the what do you call it, the byways, and the person gets stuck in traffic, and for some reason the person might be on his or her phone and do not pay attention to the traffic light, they barely even horn for you to move. But in Africa, it's a different ballgame. So, like you said, we have two different cultures, and the culture is very wide. But let me also reflect on this. Back home, some of us were copying blindly, to the extent at the time I was in high school. We were thinking that for you to feel like an American, you have to wear baggy pants and having all these kind of haircuts and putting all these chains around your neck to feel like you are on top of the game. In my transition, I was trying to do that, and my mom was like, you have not traveled and you feel like that is how you feel like you'll be recognized or be embraced. Son, this is a ghetto life. You don't have to get yourself into it. I was so struggling. I feel like, hey, that is how life's supposed to be. But when I got here and I studied the culture, I was able to know that, oh, some people that lead that certain type of life are being classified in a certain way. So I have to learn my way through the culture.
Okay. So you did speak a little bit about greetings. So I know back home in Ghana as a child or as a youth or as a young person or even anyone in general, you wake up in the morning, everyone that you see, you're supposed to acknowledge them. Even when you step out of your house, whoever that you come across, you're supposed to acknowledge them, regardless how you're feeling for the day, whatever situation you are in. In the US, it's not that way though.
No, it's not.
You can walk into the house. You can be away for so long, walk into the house, even with your own family, and not acknowledge them. And in the US culture, that's okay. Being an African parent, tell me, if your child does this, what goes through your mind, or how do you feel, and what do you say to them?
Well, just as you mentioned, much more depends on what you put in them, or how you show them which of the cultures that you want your kids to embrace.
Okay.
Just as you mentioned, some people somehow have been here and they've lost the culture, or they feel like everything is okay. Culture is very, very important because that determines, or it kind of give a signal for people to know where you are from. Because just as you mentioned, in Africa, the moment that one comes to your house, you offer the person a chair to sit. The next thing is, you don't even ask the person the mission as to why he or she is there, but have to make sure that you give the person water or drink for the person to feel at home before you engage the person into conversation.
Yeah.
Just as you mentioned, American culture is not that way. You come and the person, hey, the moment you say hey, whether you yourself is gonna sit down or not, or probably may have to ask, or else the person might not even offer you a chair. So these are that tells you the diversity of cultures that we have in this country.
Yeah.
But like you said, with my child, I'm doing my possible best for them to have the two. Like I said, the good side of America and the good side of Ghana, because your culture will determine or would allow people to know where you come from. Exactly.
Okay. So if a friend of your child comes to the house, or you meet, let me say, a Ghanaian child, because to you, because you're Ghanaian, you train your child by the culture of Ghanaians.
Yes.
And so it kind of sets an expectation in your mind that when you meet a young Ghanaian person, this is what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So when you meet a Ghanaian child that does not do those things, what do you think or say? Do you kind of associate it with their parents not being good parents because their child is not doing that, or do you just take it as we're in America, so that's okay?
Well, I wouldn't attack, or I wouldn't have any. I don't have any expectation as to how I may have to address that situation.
Okay.
Because generally have their own way of doing things, or with me, unless maybe whatever you exit in my house somehow infiltrates our values, then I'll find a very nice way to address that. Other than that, who am I to judge?
Well, I guess I'll leave that point, but just to say that I know in being in the Ghanaian community, because most of our parents and the adults or the elderly in the community are Ghanaians, there's always that expectation. Like sometimes I think it's very hard for them to kind of separate out or embrace the differences in culture in Ghana and here. And I say this to say, somebody that grew up in Ghana is exposed, and it was a norm, and they've lived a life, and they know what to do and what not to do. But then just because I have Ghanaian parents doesn't mean that I am going to be a Ghanaian child, or I'm going to be the same as somebody that has Ghanaian parents back in Ghana. But this is a challenge because kids are growing up here, and in as much as you are training them, you're not the only person that they have that time with, or they're growing up with. They're also growing up around friends, teachers, and everything else, which portrays a different culture altogether.
Right.
So will you say that in the future you're expecting your children to also have that kind of mindset that you have, that culture is so important and I have to embrace where I'm coming from? And even in saying embracing where I'm coming from, they technically are not coming from Ghana, because most of them are not born in Ghana. So
right.
Technically, I know when you ask my younger brother, he will say he's from Texas. Even I'm from Kokobeng, and that was not where I was born. That's where my parents are born. So I know I will say that. So in growing up, are you expecting your children to also have that mindset that you have, that they need to embrace their culture, which is the Ghanaian culture, and also try to embed that in their children and generations to follow?
Well, I'll do my best. And as you mentioned, if I cast my eyes around,
Okay.
The Indians, the Chinese barely have that problem. It's only we Africans, and I don't know whether it has something to do with slavery or colonialism.
Okay.
We are the ones that we easily throw in the towel at the end of the day, when our kids also get of age and they want to marry, we try to look around to see if we can get Ghanaian kids for them to marry. Meanwhile, we don't even embed this culture in them.
Yeah.
And culture is very, very important, because where we are from, we know that it has always been said, and we know that when your parents help you to grow up and they feed you and they educate you, when they also get old, you also have to pay them back. This American culture that we have, don't do that. They go and put you in a home. And that has been a struggle. So, people that have been here for quite a while are experiencing that, and they wish they could have embedded that in their kids, but now it's too late. And I'm so glad that you are even having this conversation to see how some of us can even correct that. So culture is very, very important. It's very valuable. We are, it's a struggle that is going on, but it can be fixed. So one thing that I've realized is, back home, and I know some Ghanaians that are here, the reason why our children doesn't want to ask why they have to do this, we just want to enforce it on them. And nobody wants that. Back home, there are so many things that they taught us, or they wanted us to do, that they tell you do it without even asking questions. But if you're able to let them know why, explain to them and have a conversation, then they will love it. And that's what I've been trying to get my kids with.
Okay. One thing I also want to ask, you grew up in a home, or you grew up in Ghana, where parents told you what to do as a command. Mm-hmm. And just like you said, you could not challenge it. You could not object. You couldn't ask questions. It was, hey, sit, and you have to sit. If you didn't sit, it was beatings for you.
Right.
Hey, go. You don't even ask. You don't get to ask to where. You just start going. But we are here in America where, hey, sit. Who, me? I should sit? Why? I don't want to sit. I'm going to go sleep instead. Right. And they don't even give you that chance to even say, hey, no, you can't do that. It's just, so it's almost like the roles reversed. Right. You can ask as a parent in America, but then the child has the final say of what they want to do or what they don't want to do. And then back in Ghana, mm-hmm. the parents command and you didn't have any say. So you growing up in Ghana, having to obey commands, and you being a parent in America, how do you kind of help yourself not to always be angry? Because I know it can be frustrating, or you can get mad because you grew up this way, but then your child is resisting you trying to train them that way. So how do you deal with that?
Yes, as you mentioned, that's why at the beginning of the conversation, I told you that I've been here for quite a while, and back home too, I'm trying to detach myself from it. That's the only way that can make you a better person. Even the struggle that we're having here, back home, they are facing the worst. Because surprisingly, there are a whole lot of people that are in Ghana that I would say that they are doing well, and their kids can't even speak their own language. When you talk to them, all these kids speak English. I was like, how can these kids speak? These kids are in Ghana and they don't even speak their language. It's crazy, but that's what is going on. Unlike we here, we want our kids to want to speak our language and they can't speak it.
But would you, I'm sorry to cut in, but are parents here really wanting their children to speak the language? Because this is what I see. Mm-hmm. When you go back home to Ghana, someone that speaks English is regarded as intelligent, smart, well brought up, from a good home. If I go to a market in Ghana and I speak English, everybody will turn and face me and try to see to what I need. Versus somebody that's speaking Twi, they won't even see you in the room. And then, but because of that mindset, it's like our parents are even proud. Ghanaian parents that are in America are proud that their children can even speak Twi. So when they go to Ghana, they'll be regarded as intelligent, smart, and all these mindsets that we have. So I'm not sure, does your children speak Twi?
Yes, I'm teaching them. And let me just revert a bit of what you said. I had kids. But what I came to find was that those that they migrated here earlier, mm-hmm. most of them didn't even know how to speak the English. Okay. And they were using their children as the training grounds to learn the English. And for that, they didn't even want their kids to speak Twi. Let alone some of us are here, we can speak both, and yet we are not even helping our kids to speak the tree.
Okay.
You see?
Mhm.
So, you know, just as you mentioned, it's a struggle, but we can get there. As I told you, the Spanish, the Chinese, the Russians,
Yeah.
they don't have a problem today. Why only Africans?
You know, I mean, you're so right. I don't think I ever met a Spanish kid
Yes.
that could not speak or understand their language. But there are so many in general. You hardly see like parents really trying. And I can tell you this from experience. Some of these kids feel like it's even embarrassing for them to speak the tree. And one or two times they don't even want to come close to their parents when they're in public because they're like the way they speak, the tree that they speak. Are parents neglecting to kind of teach or instill in their children to have pride in where their roots are?
And that's why I said earlier, the reason why we need to do that is most of the people here, the lens that we're looking at Africans was giving us a certain type of stigma. And for that, Africans did not, the kids that were brought here at a younger age or are born here, never saw themselves as valuable. They never attached any importance to their culture. And for that, they were being shunned. But if you have a conversation with your child and let them know that, hey, you are a royal. You, back home, the food that you eat is, organic.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
culture that you guys have has been in existence. America came into being about just 400 years ago. If we embed them and they know who they are, how come that we are the originals? Excuse me to say that for Americans, they bypass us, go back home and try to get their naturalization and learn the culture and get a culture to even embrace. You are from the originality, and yet you don't even know who you are. And that's why from the beginning of the conversation, I told you that people that they don't know where they are from, it's very hard for them to know where they are going. And that's why when they get here, it's so easy for the kids to fall off because they don't know who they are. And they want to be embraced. So when they get to the colleges, anything, they just get themselves into it. And before they realize, they might be on drugs, or before they realize they get in jail because they don't know who they are.
Okay.
But if we're able to instill the culture in them, they know who they are. As long as I always tell people, how many Indians and Chinese people do you see them in jail or on drugs? Because they embed their culture in them.
Okay.
Am I right, brothers?
That's it.
Okay. Well, let's come to education and culture. What would you say is the influence of culture on education for you being a youth or as a parent? I want you to speak to me from you in your youthful ages. What was the influence of culture in you selecting or setting up goals for you in terms of education? And then we'll discuss your expectations that you're setting for your boys with the influence of culture.
I'm still trying hard to understand the question.
Okay, let me ask the first
Yes,
one.
rephrase it again. Yes.
What was the influence of culture on you picking or setting goals for yourself educational wise?
All right, just as you mentioned, well, there are so many things that growing up, like you said, was enforced on me, and I could not understand it. But growing up, I have to make time as to understand why I was asked to do this and that, and I was able to see the importance. I was able to see why it was enforced on me. And growing up, I saw the influence and how beneficial it was. Just as you mentioned, I've come to understand that in life, culture plays a role.
Yeah.
Culture somehow shapes your destiny. Because as I mentioned, with my kids, right?
Mhm.
They always tell me that, Daddy, in my school, I can't even find a Ghanaian that I want to even talk to, because when I grow up, I want to marry a Ghanaian. Then I asked them why. He said, because I want a wife that will fix me food that mommy always does. I said, really? I said, well then it depends on who you marry, because if you are not selective as to who you might not come and find food on the table to eat. And my second mom also come and tell me that, Daddy, the reason why I want to marry a Ghanaian is that I don't want to eat pizza. That's junk. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah. I said, okay, then that much more depends on who you marry. So this is all part of education. You don't necessarily have to sit your son or your child down and just point on them. But as to the questions they bring to you and whatever that you do in the house, sometimes some of these conversations doesn't have to even take place. But most conversations that take place in the house is about what the children see and they feed on. And you also have to open up that door so that if anytime they face challenges or anytime they have any questions regarding your culture, then you tell them. And that is the education that we can help our children with.
Okay, that's very good. So I want to ask, in selecting your educational career,
Yes.
as to I want to go to middle school, graduate high school, go to college, and the profession that you choose.
Yes.
We're not going to jump into the profession yet, but in setting those educational goals for yourself, the culture have a role on it. And growing up in Ghana, did you actually have a say? Because I know typically, and even our movies, it's reflected in them. Our parents want us to be doctors, lawyers. What's the last one?
Engineers, if I may say, right?
That one was later on, but it was a doctor or a lawyer. Anything else is like you're a fool. What do you think you're doing?
Right.
You want to go and waste my time or go do all that for that amount of years? So in you growing up, did you actually have a say per the culture that was back home, or did your parents set up your educational goals for you?
To some extent, I would say that they set it for me. But as time goes by, I was the type of person that you could not easily influence or put him in a corner. But one thing is, that is the challenge up to today that Africans are facing, especially even when you go to a parliament. There are a whole lot of people that sit there that they will speak dictionary English, yet nothing is happening. You see? And that it's a reflection of the colonialism or the colonization or the slavery thing that Africans or Africa went through. That has been a problem in Africa, because one thing, you can help your child or nourish your child to come out with what God has embedded in your child, but you can't specifically set up. How do I even put it? You can't even somehow determine your child's educational life or future. It doesn't happen that way, because we are all made differently. We are wired differently, But just as you mentioned, in Africa, they had that specific goals. Somebody will go to school and become an engineer, yet he can't fix his own car. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
So that way, I think one preacher even said it in one of his talk shows, what have you, that the white people came to Africa, and what they needed most for the Africans to know was to speak English, because that's the only way they could communicate with us. And that's why English was so prevalent in Africa. But with these all courses that they taught us, they didn't even teach us how we could be hands-on. But all that we could is to just speak grammatic. And that was it.
So it was all theory.
All theory. That's
practicals.
The practicals, I don't know where they put it.
It was here. It's in the US.
Exactly.
Okay, there were no labs.
The Western culture.
Yeah. So wonderful. There are so many questions that I would love to ask, and we have questions coming from our viewers as well. Okay. But our last topic that I want us to kind of discuss is what you pointed out, that as a parent, you cannot set a destiny for your child. You can only nurture, bring it out. Like you see it, and then you encourage, you put in the time, the effort, the resources, and all that, and then they grow, and then they use it, and it becomes beneficial to them, their family, and the community as a whole. But would you say that African parents are doing good in that aspect?
Well, it's a big challenge, because as you mentioned, there are so many goals that African parents do set for their kids. And because we migrated here, most of the time they look up to where the money is, and that's where they want to push their children. And one thing that I realized was, I know a lot of people that are in the field of nursing, and yet they don't like it, but because of the money. They go to work, they cry every day, but because of the money, they have to be there, and that's very, very stressful. So Africans, just as you mentioned, in general, we are struggling in that area, because we were not brought up that way, so we don't know how much we can even influence Africans because our cultures to come into our aid to give us that help.
Yeah.
We have to help ourselves. The churches, the community leaders, the professionals in the community, we have to engage into these conversations and see how best that we can help our children. I mean, GMA, Ghana Men Association, I would say that we took that one of these tasks on ourselves, and we're trying to see how best we could help the youth in terms of how they can select their professions. Surprisingly, most of the Africans that we invited them, they didn't bring kids. But when it comes to funerals and outdoors, you see this family coming up there. But these things that would help their kids, you don't see them showing up.
Yeah.
And it get to a point in time that the people that we invited, because we were inviting professionals that came from the universities, that some of these people, for you to see them, you have to pay them $10,000. But because we're a non-profit, they were coming to help us to see how best they can shape our children's destiny.
Yeah.
But we're getting our people are not showing up.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, well, so in conclusion, any advice for the youth, first of all, and then in closing, before I take over, advice for parents as well?
Yes, I would say that with our youth, I do see their pain, I see the struggle that they are going through, because now they find themselves in two different worlds, in two different cultures, and they don't know which one to embrace. Let alone, I would say that even if your parents are not so much friendly in such a way that you can have that conversation with, find a family friend, somebody that you can trust, somebody that you can engage and see how best they can help you, because culture is very, very important, because we've seen that America have so many great cultures here, but on the other hand, if you're not too careful, some cultures too can lead you astray, and we don't want our kids to go through that. So let me tell you, the African culture is the richest culture on this continent. Let us know we do have our challenges as to some things that have been archaic, but in the nutshell, I would say that there are so many good things in there that one can embrace to make your life better. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the advice for both groups.
For
Parents. And
with the parents. Okay, let me also emphasize a little bit on the parents. With the parents, what I would say is that most of us, because we are still understanding the American culture and it's a struggle ourselves, we don't know how we also result on your friends, family, or other professions do that have more insight to be able to help you, because especially the kids, when they get to the youthful age, the 19s and the teens, it's very, very hard to engage them. But that's why we have the church, we have counselors, that we have community. Please engage them before it gets out of hand. But as I said, we know the African culture, there are so many good things in there that we know how we do respect our elders. And if we're able to embed some of these great values in our kids, we will not regret. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we are going to be reading some of the few comments that came in, and any questions that was also posted. We're going to address a few of them before we check out for the day. We are so happy, and I am so excited to be having this conversation, not just with my guests, but with you at home as well, everybody that's watching us. This show really is to educate and to empower one another. We want to kind of get on the same page. We want to have a better understanding of ourselves, our parents, and all the people around us, because that is how we're going to be able to be productive to ourselves and to our community as a whole. So I'm just going to read a few of the comments that came, and then we're going to address it. So Yan Shuraba said, keep it up. Thank you so much. Sandy said he is embarrassed by his first name. Sandy, your first name is not even Chi. It's not even Ghanaian. So I'm sorry for that. Amy said, you have to take your time and break down the names to pronounce it well. Yes. When it comes to our local names or our Ghanaian given names, you really have to take the time. I have said my name so many times per how others call me now. It's even hard for me to say it the right way now. Like people say Abna, but my name is Abena. Abena. And I think when you do take the time, you can get it right. But it's so frustrating at times because it's like every person that you meet, sometimes you're trying to get something done and the whole conversation just gets centered around your name. Like you have to educate people about your name. And it can get frustrating and you can be annoyed by it sometimes. I don't want to spend half of my day training people how to say my name. I have things that I need to get done, but we're going to work on it because like we said, we have to educate one another. And people that we meet are not from the same culture, the same background. So of course, they're not going to know how to say it. I think I'll just advise everybody and myself that we have to take the time and know that we have to educate. Akosia said, we need to train or teach our children that their name is special and unique and their name isn't something to be ashamed of.
Yes.
No matter what their name is, everybody should say it correctly. Good. Maneva said, good topic and nice conversation. Elizabeth said, very educative. And Mr. Joe said, the Ghanaian parents used Africa as a way to reprimand their children. For example, I will send you to Africa if you do
That
this.
is very true.
And this is so big in so many homes because it makes Africa look like the bad place that you don't want to go.
Exactly.
Like it's used as a punishment. How do I take pride in something you're using to punish me?
Yes.
So parents, we have to really be attentive and very careful to the things that we say, because sometimes I know that we say things out of anger and frustration and all that, but they do have implications and consequences. And if you continuously tell your child, I'm going to send you to Africa if you don't do this, I'm going to send you to Africa and leave you there, what are you communicating to them?
Yes.
Stress-free. Everybody cares about everybody. And that is not a place to punish somebody with. I would love, honestly, I would love to mess up and have my parents send me to Africa. I mean, if they buy my plane ticket, I don't even mind staying there and not coming back because I'm from Ghana. I live there. And so I know this. But for a child that has not been, that grew up in the US and from all the things that they get to hear from sources that are not even
Authentic.
accurate,
Yes.
it is not good for parents to be using that as a way of punishment or threat. Why would you threaten your child? It's like, if you don't do this, I'm not going to be your parent anymore. You don't say that. So parents, please, let's pay attention to all these things that we say to our children at home and all that. And so right now, if anybody have any other questions, I would just like to say that I am so sorry for the technical difficulties that kind of put the show back a little bit. It's not going to be like that. You know, first times are always hard, but we're getting a hold of it. And so things are going to be way smoother and better next time. And the show is going to be every 2 weeks. So we're not going to be having the show next week, but we will have it the following Sunday. And we're going to be bringing in different guests to talk about different topics that are really important. And just as my guest said, some of these conversations are not being had at homes, and they are so necessary that we do have these conversations. Because in America, if you don't catch the mind of the child at this point, it will get to a point where it will not make any difference, whatever that you see or you say. So please, I want to encourage parents and I want to encourage the youth that even as we have started this show, it's kind of like a key that opens the door to talking more with our families, be on the same page, trying to understand. Because I think when we sit down and we talk, it gives us a better picture of why things are being done in a certain way. Just as we discussed the name and stuff, like it has some importance that if you're not told, you would not know. So please do tune in every other 2 weeks, 3 p.m. Central Time. And we're going to be sitting down, and we are also going to be bringing on professionals to also give us some of the resources available that we didn't know about, that we're probably not using, to give us advice, from real estate agents to stock workers, my guest
Counselors.
here. Yes, and all that, the things that we need, because this is all about educating and empowering. So thank you so much, so much, for all that you have done in supporting and being part of this experience today. Again, my name is Abena Owusua Nyanta. That's my whole name. I think after having this conversation, I'm very relaxed about saying my name. And so, okay, somebody has a question. So let me read. It says, I want to know if you two are able to speak in American accent. People can speak in Ghanaian accent and American style accent. Wow.
That was a question.
Can we speak in American accents and Ghanaian accents?
Well, I speak in Ghanaian accent. I don't have any American accent. I was born, bred in Ghana, ate fufu, Bayre and all that. So my accent is thick. There's no way that I can speak American accent.
One thing that I know for sure is, even with the ones that are born in the US, when it comes to food and insults, they can say everything perfectly with the accent.
Mhm.
But then when it comes to other stuff, then they are like, they can say or use the accent. Me personally, I'm kind of in between. It depends on where I am. Like if I'm at work, I'm not gonna. But when I am in a situation where I'm frustrated, I don't even care where I am going to speak with my Ghana accent for you to know that I'm serious about what I'm saying. So yes, I guess we can kind of use it.
Intertwine.
Yeah. Yes. So, okay. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, KB, for taking the time, sitting down with us and speaking with us about this very important topic, which is culture. And I think that we're gonna invite you back again. And that time, you're not gonna be coming to speak to us about culture and all that, but you're gonna be talking to us about stocks and all that stuff.
Not a problem.
So thank you so much. And I also like to give a shout out to Mr. Justice K and his crew. Mr. Crew, I didn't get your name.
Harry.
And Mr. Harry, they have done so well. Trust me, if it wasn't for them, this experience wouldn't have happened today. I am so grateful. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that took the time to watch the show today. Please share the link. Please subscribe. We love you all so much. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your Thanksgiving and please be safe.
1 hour.
I know.
1 hour flight, yeah.
On a dot.
1 hour.
You see, when you're talking, you don't even see.
Oh,
You
I have to, because you can't just cut it, man.
You know.